Hi, my name is Amy Val and I am a social entrepreneur from Greater Manchester. I work in the field of homeless and housing, and I was asked a couple of days ago to respond to some young children's questions about homelessness with regards to a project that they're doing in their school. So I've recruited my own daughter in to ask the questions. I believe the questions have come from children who are aged 6 and 10. So I thought with my own daughter being 10, it would be good for her to ask the questions and I'll give as fair an answer as I can, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit about housing and homelessness today. So I'm going to hand over to Bella with her questions.
Question 1. Why do homeless people live on the streets?
Wow, that's a hard question, and homeless people, in my experience, live on the streets for lots of different reasons, and not always the reasons that you may think that they live on the streets for. So I meet a lot of people who have lost their jobs, or they've split up with their wife or their husband, or they have become unwell and been unable to manage their property that they've lived in, and they've been asked to leave their property and had nowhere else to go. So it can be for quite lots of different reasons, and some people have been homeless for a very short period of time, and some homeless people that you see on the streets have been there for a lot longer, and they find it a lot harder to try and get back into housing and to access the support that they might need.
Question 2. Why don't they have food to eat?
Well, in my experience, at the moment in Manchester, homeless people actually do have food to eat because we're really fortunate that we've got lots of charities and volunteers and organisations who are out providing support to the rough sleepers at the moment. Now, I know this isn't the same for every homeless person who's all over the country, and in Manchester we've had lots of attention on Manchester. We've been in the newspapers and in the press quite a lot because there's been a big increase in homelessness in Manchester. So because of that, we've had lots of kind-hearted people who've been helping our homeless. So thankfully our homeless are not quite as hungry as they were, hopefully anyway. But yes, you're right, a lot of homeless people don't have a lot to eat, and I think that's because, for one, food is very expensive, and for two, homeless people a lot of the time can find it difficult to maintain a job, so they're earning money, or even if they needed to claim benefits, that's going to be tricky for them as well. So they won't have an address to register their benefit claim, so they might not have any money at all, so they wouldn't be able to go into a shop and buy food like you or I would be able to.
Question 3. Why can't the government give homeless people a home for free?
I would love for the government to give every homeless person a house, and I think that would be fantastic if we were able to offer that option. Unfortunately, that's not something that's available, and it's quite complicated as to why not. For one reason that homeless people can't just be offered a house is because a lot of homeless people will be unable to manage that house. They might have health conditions, or they might have mental health conditions, which means that they're not in the best frame of mind to be able to manage all of the responsibilities that come to them with their own home. So I would love to see the government giving all homeless people a house, but I don't think it's always the right answer for a lot of the homeless people. But I do agree with you that that's what we should be working towards, and that's what I do in my business. I try and find houses for the homeless, and I can't find them, unfortunately, via the government, but where I can find them is in the houses that we have to rent that are empty. So I work with landlords who have empty houses and persuade them to take the homeless people, and then I help the homeless people to try and maintain that house and live in that house for a long time and not end up homeless again.
Question 4. Why can't we stop homelessness?
Wow, again, a really tough question, and you're really making me think about my answers here. Homelessness is a very complex issue, and when I first started working in homelessness many years ago, I used to think that if we could just give them houses, it might solve the problem. And when I set my own business up, I tried to find a way that we could put homeless people into houses and hopefully keep them off the streets. And a lot of the problems that I encountered was the support service that was around, and it's not everybody is able to have a house of their own and to be able to pay the bills on time and to be able to remember to clean it all the time and to look after it and maintain it. So some people do need a little bit extra support, and some people need a lot of support to be able to have their own house. So for me, I think the lacking in our ability to solve homelessness is because we don't have all of the support for the people that need it. And also, it's an expensive problem too. Homelessness costs a lot of money to try and solve the problem of. So we're living in a time where we don't have a huge amount of money going spare to solve these problems. So we're all having to try and think really, really smart to try and solve these problems.
Question 5. If you housed a homeless person, how would they pay for it?
So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that I do in my business, People's Property Shop, is I work with homeless people to try and find accommodation that they want to live in, and accommodation that's going to be suitable for them and it is going to be okay for them to manage when they live there on a long-term basis. So, if they're going to move into some of the property that I help them to find, initially we'll be able to make a claim for benefits. So that means that the government will pay a small amount of money, and that will help the homeless person to pay their rent and pay for it every week on time. So that's one way of getting the rent paid for a homeless person when they get the property. And then when hopefully they're settled and happy and getting themselves back on their feet, they can look at starting to pay their own rent when they move into employment and hopefully get a job further down the line. So I hope that that's answered all of your questions anyway. If you would like any more questions answering, I would be more than happy to help anytime. Good luck with your homeless project, and thank you for asking for my advice.